Hi guys, and welcome to the latest MSC Performance Podcast. This is season 3, episode 3 with me, Mark and Sona, and today I'm joined by Sonia Glakova. How are we doing, Sonia?
Hi everyone. Hi Mark. Nice being back with our weekly podcast. I'm great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very formal introduction. So today we're going to be talking about, it's going to be kind of a two-part podcast. The first part of the podcast, we're going to talk about independent gyms versus Globo gyms. So a little bit of chat about the differences between the two, the benefits you can get from training in a private facility as opposed to like a big commercial gym. And the second part of the podcast is going to be looking at the importance of conditioning work. In which we'll be going into the importance of it for the everyday person, importance for athletes, and also types of conditioning, what we can do. Does it have to be a run? Can we do more kind of Metcon type stuff? What intensities do we have to work at, etc., etc. So that's the topics we're going to be covering today. So we'll start off with part 1, which is going to be basically talking about the, let's say, independent versus commercial gyms. So yeah, I think like we'll jump straight into it. And you know, in terms of, I think the key points we want to talk about a little bit about accountability, community, discipline, effort, goal setting, group environment, all these kind of things we want to cover really. The big differences between the two really are that in a lot of, or the vast majority of the commercial gyms, the business model is aimed around large numbers of people. So very, very high volume of people. Hopefully those people aren't going to all come in and use the gym. So they like to have lots of sleeping members. And the cost can be low to moderate, especially in like recent years. There's been a lot more of the lower cost gym memberships of the evolution of the budget chain gyms, around sort of £15-20 a month, and obviously your higher end health clubs, if you like, your David Lloyd's, etc., might be 60, 70, £80, so not necessarily cheap, but generally speaking we are talking of sort of cheap to moderate membership costs. But the business model is based around high volume of people. For independent gyms, obviously independent gyms is probably more variety in terms of costings and things like that. But for a gym like ours, for example, the price point is a little bit different, but that's in return for a much higher level of service. And our business model isn't based on thousands and thousands of people. For example, a pure gym would, operate on, 6,000, people plus, whereas a gym like ours will operate on a couple of hundred people. So there's a vast difference in the numbers, and that is the kind of first thing that, would jump out at you in terms of the differences between the two. So the smaller numbers enables independent gyms like ourselves to really focus on results, high level of service, community, getting to know everybody's name, knowing something about them, having that interaction, and caring about the people that we're working with, which might not necessarily be the case, or is impossible the case, in all fairness, with 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 people. Anything to expand on that, Sonia, before I talk for the whole episode?
No, cool. I think like what comes up in my head is like, obviously gym is a gym, right? Like if you want to get the work done, we can go to any gym and we can do the work if we need to. If you're away on travels, obviously you might pick gyms you would prefer, you find gyms you like or with the equipment you need. But what I'm thinking, or what for me it means, is that that why people actually stick into the place, or why people are coming back to that place, and what they actually create, how it turns their training or enjoyment of the training completely different way. And I'm just talking completely from my experience being here at MSC, and I've never worked in any other gym like commercial gym. So I know you and Luke have this experience. whereas I don't. But I just know that like people I've came across, they have not always had a relationship with the gym or training itself as they have now. And I found this really interesting that it changed their life. Like they looking at the training differently, because I think the first kind of aim for everyone is like, yeah, I go gym because I want to look good, I want to lose weight. This is like probably the first reason what most of the gym pop kind of aims for when they go to the gym. And I think like people who came with this mindset change into like, it's now my lifestyle. Like I come to a class, I have my group of people, or you know, the little social we have, or just like the ongoing chat. Like I think these type of gyms change people's life, and I think this is the good way in which the industry is kind of going. And like if we talk in gym like us, or if we talk in like the CrossFit affiliated gyms, like whole the idea of there's the same group of people or smaller amount of members, as you said with the numbers, that all kind of has different benefits to it. Like you are basically belonging somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think this is moving in a good way, that like people want to belong to something, a group with common interests, common goals. And yeah, I just think really positively about all this. And I couldn't wish for a better place than this. Like the fact that we have the same amount of people, or the same amount of people training every day on everyday basis. Like we get to know them outside of the gym, and I think it's really nice getting to know people, know what they do outside of the gym. And it's just nice that we can sometimes have a chat about other things than just training. So this is how I just feel about all this, that like it really is more than just gym, because I think people may lose, or you know, when they plateau with training, because they just turn up to a gym which is empty. I mean, people who used to go like Pure Gym and other gyms, I named that, but they say that these gyms are basically empty when they're 24/7. So you barely meet there someone, there's probably no one to help, and it's just you on your own. And I think like it's a massive element what we have, that like
it's motivation.
I think it's terrible that you turn up to a gym and there's no one on reception. Like no one literally, and you basically can do whatever you want in that gym, and probably that is also not really safe.
It's quite like complete lack of quality control, really. It's like it's neglect, essentially. So it's I'll probably get sued by Pure Gym now if they listen to this. But like that's a big thing here, is like, you know, we say, you know, to people from day one, like we want to run a tight ship here in terms of technique, form, you know, how people are lifting, and having that's why we've gone with, you know, highly qualified guys rather than just regular PTs, so that we can provide that quality and that skill to help people, so that we can monitor everybody who comes through this door. You know, whether they're on the barbell club or the Metcon or they're doing open gym, we know they're going to be lifting safely and effectively, and that's a big thing for us. I think like most of the subjects we end up talking about, I always come back to one thing, and that's, in order to get results, it's about sustainability and consistency. So like two really key things. And I think everything you've just mentioned there, like enables, like is a difference between whether you're consistent and sustainable or whether you're not. So you talk about like, you know, enjoyment, you talk about atmosphere, you're talking about getting help off of staff, you're talking about like short-term plans over long-term plans. Definitely
more elements into it, which like keeps you accountable or keeps you going and having the passion for it. Because I know sometimes you might not feel like, you know, you have a shit day at work. Social stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like members of ours, for example, and I know, you know, other independent gyms are similar in this respect, is like, you know, our guys know if they're going through a bit of a rough patch, or they can't, you know, they're lacking motivation. They know they can, you know, they know us by name, they know us by personality, you know, and they can make that contact with us if we haven't already made contact with them. to sort of keep them motivated, keep them goal driven, keep the sessions fun, keep the community spirit, high. And all of these things roll into enjoyment, and that's the key, is that like, that's the biggest thing, is that you enjoy your training, I think, because, whatever your goals, because, if you are enjoying it and it's not a chore, like you say, you hear some people, I've got to go gym, or I hate it here, I hate it there. Like, why are you hating the way you train? It's like, I say to people who hate their jobs, like, a lot of the time, like, you don't have to live like that. And like, this is less of an excuse. Like, I can get people like doing jobs they hate for a little bit because they need money and they've got mortgages to pay and stuff like that. But like, it's a gym, man. Like, it's like, training is health, and like, health and fitness should be enjoyable. And if it's not, like, you can change that. There's places where you can go where you'll enjoy your training. And again, all of that rolls into, right, if I'm enjoying my training and I'm getting the help I need and I'm making friends, I'm enjoying the community and the atmosphere is good, then I'm going to turn up. I'm going to turn up, and then I'm going to turn up consistently. Training is going to be sustainable because you've got, sensible coaches who are going to monitor your training in the same, in the right way. And then what does that equal? That equals results, as we know. It's like consistency, sustainability.
Because I like a good appreciation to this, because I know some people who came here, they don't have that relationship with gym as much as they do now. And now I know that I've heard from them literally saying, I wanted to come here and I'm glad I'm here today. And like, these things really make me feel good about what we do and the place we read and the things we run. It literally is very like satisfactional, like in this concept of it actually changed their attitude towards training.
Big time. That's huge. That's life changing, as you said earlier. Because like you say, you go from that mentality of like, I've got to go down the gym, I'm going to get looked at, it's moody in there, it's like nobody puts the weights away, it's horrible atmosphere, and it's like, and then like you say, they start coming here and it's like, oh wow, gyms don't have to be like that. And
as well, I think when you have like gym who runs some classes or offer some sort of service like we do, that keeps you like, it creates a good structure into your timetable, like schedule, work schedule, life schedule. So like, if you know that like you're supposed to make it a couple of times at 6 a.m. for the Metcon, you'll adapt everything to make it. Or like, that like, you get barbell club 3 times a week, you suddenly are willing to make the change, and that it's there, and like almost like that group is kind of expecting you to turn up, the coach is expecting you to turn up, and you want to go there because it's going to be a really good hour of the day. So having that set, that like gym which offers you something, I think it just brings people in and keep them going, rather than, I think the people you were talking about like a while ago, like they do it, but I think it's very inconsistent. And that's why they're missing the results. And then it all again comes up to the fact that like gyms like this can give you results. Exactly. And you're working with like-minded people as well. So like, you're working with members who, some might be stronger, some might be a bit weaker, but like, you're all working towards the same goal of like, improving that athleticism, and then there might be smaller goals within that, but like, we're essentially all trying to get better. And I think with that good atmosphere and like-minded people and friendly people, making it enjoyable environment, along with like good structure, higher level coaches, and that's where like you say, you're turning up because the program works, because there's the structure within your training. Like, how many people do we get come in for a consultation and they're like, I kind of go to gym, I just do a bit of, I just jump on the treadmill, or I do, just the fact that they're seeking something plan, else,
there's no guidance,
means that it's not working.
Exactly. Like, there's no structure behind what they're doing. So like, they're going in and working out, which is better than nothing, but like, they're not really training or working towards anything.
Sustainable either.
Exactly. So that also comes down, down to that. So like, you know, that's a key thing as well. Like I said, I think like if you go to like, you know, a lot of commercial gyms, and like, don't get me wrong, there's some good coaches in commercial gyms, like definitely, but like, you know, I'd safely say that like most independent gyms are going to have like high level coaches, and like, you know, we certainly try and implement that here, where, you know, we've got good level coaches who can, you know, like say, I mean, you can go and pay £15 a month for these, you know, budget gyms, and that's no drama. Some of them are quite well kitted out, you know, and you know, it's pretty cheap for that. But like, you know, like I say, if you want good equipment, if you want good atmosphere, you know, members who put their weights away and respect each other, alongside good coaching, good guidance, accountability, you know, then and community, then that's, you know, that's the golden ticket, really.
Because I think as well, like, people know what they're paying for and they appreciate it, because they want to kind of keep these gyms going, because they've been to the other gyms, like the commercial ones, and they've seen the difference.
You're there alongside 8,000 other people, and it's like nobody gives a shit about you.
If you make gym and training and this lifestyle like your priority, you'll find the worth in it. I think that's like without discussion these days. If you're not that willing, like, to make the change you want, and that's fine. Like,
yeah.
But like overall, that probably, like, that's just a comparison that, like, you know, it might not be the place you're gonna stick to forever, but I think people who trained in different gyms and then went to independent, they definitely know the difference.
Big time.
And then obviously you see the difference between or amongst the independent gyms. But I think, you know, like each independent gym has different focus. And I think MSC is very unique. And no, I just think it's like a great environment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, you know, yeah, the accountability as well, like that side of things, you know, comes from us, but also like other members that you become friends with. And I don't think there's many gyms friendlier than ours, to be honest, like in terms of like just who you're going to be working in with and who the other members are and stuff. You see the atmosphere down the gym and everyone's pushing each other. Like I said, with you know, with our we train guys from like complete beginners right through to, you know, elite athletes. Probably most of our market's late beginner, early intermediate, we will say, but like we do train that whole spectrum. But, you know, it doesn't really matter to us what your experience level is or what your, you know, what your ability level's like.
Definitely.
It's as long as you're willing to come in and put the work in and get better and enjoy yourself and be friendly and like meet us halfway, then we're, you know, we can, you know, get you to that next 11 and above. And I say, you know, we always say to the stronger guys here, like, you know, like a job of theirs is to like help other people who maybe aren't as experienced and strong. Like, you know, you see guys like, you know, Jazz, who, you know, is going to the Commonwealth Games and like he'll be watching, you know, someone snatching 40 kilos next to him and like helping them out, like encouraging them. Like, and this guy's like, you know, one of the best lifters in the UK, and like is going to the Commonwealth Games, and you know, it's you know, I always say to them, you know, the guys with great strength comes great responsibility.
It is, and you know, like
that's a Spider-Man quote, by the way.
I've seen it on the board the other day.
Yeah, it's good.
I think like you will only understand this when you actually experience it, because like I know that people who come here, let's say for just personal training, they found it intimidating or they feel insecure. But they don't know, because imagine that you come in from a background that you've never lifted before, you've never trained, you've never been to a gym, and then you see our people here, because we know we've got weightlifters lifting and shifting good work in, like you watch our Metcon and one would say like, bloody hell.
Yeah.
And you see, you know, powerlifters training here for comp, like obviously lifting loads of weight. It can come across like, okay, I don't belong here, but we know that it's not the case, and I always try to pursue that. Like, it's not like you know, they focus on their own thing and you focus on your own thing. And
as well, those powerlifters and weightlifters all started with an empty bar.
Yeah, that's the thing, that like everyone starts somewhere. And
yeah,
but what I was trying to say is that like if you stick to us, or if you join and keep coming in, you'll realize that it's just one supportive environment. Like I've never had a bad experience here when I used to be just a member here. And I think I spoke about this with Max lately, females in the gym, etc. Like, you know, there are obviously just like some women's gyms in UK or in the world, like global, no, like just female section. We know the reason why, right? I've never had a bad experience here, like feeling like I can, you know, go and get the dumbbell, or someone is watching me, or someone's like, I don't know, like I've never felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, it blows my mind when you hear like, you know, people say like, oh yeah, I felt really uncomfortable in the last gym to like go into the weight section, or
this is what I'm about.
Like what? You won't know because you've
exactly.
never been in that environment. But like, it puts me back to like when I worked in a commercial gym, and like I even remember like coaching girls one-on-one and taking them into the weights room, and everyone being like, you know, maybe like guys would be a bit pervy, or like even just like looking, thinking, what the hell are you doing in here? And it's
because
it's mad to think that, like
probably less and less, but
sure, like things are changing a little bit, I think, but like, you know, here it's like what, like that
what,
would never,
literally
like
what?
Like, you know, the you know, girls are outlifting the guys a lot of the time, and even with the, you know, and it's not just girls as well, like guys have come in and said, oh, they didn't really feel comfortable like learning how to squat in a previous gym or anything like that. They were too nervous to like lift weights, so they just got on the cross trainer and stuff.
Know how.
Exactly. So it's all good, but yeah, that's you know, I think to round up like on that, that's the basis of what we're all about, is like working with smaller numbers of people but making a huge difference to their lives, teaching them how to be strong, how to be well conditioned, you know, so that whatever, you know, whatever it is they're training for, whether it's like, you know, elite sport, amateur sport, or just everyday life, and, you know, being, you know, fit enough and strong enough to, you know, to live a better quality life, you know, that's what, you know, we're going in for, with, you know, with building a community that's fun, inclusive, enjoyable, friendly. And then also from a, you know, scientific point of view, like the coaching aspect of like actually having the, you know, giving the tools to, you know, to that person to improve, whether it's through the barbell club or the Metcon sessions, and actually like having the guidance, the, you know, the programming to, you know, to make those improvements. You know, and you know, we talk about ability levels as well, and we've got also you know, people as young as 10 years old up to,
I know,
you know, up to
70,
up to 70 plus. So it's like I say, but yeah, everyone's on their own little journey, but like I said, it's a support network. That's probably the key, is like the key phrase really, is like the support network you get here. It's just, you're more than just a number.
This ability topic like just made me realize that I literally never heard of anyone saying that it would be too difficult or too easy for someone, because like we're making it the way that all the abilities can find their way and make them feel good about themselves, and we know we can make them better.
Exactly. No matter what the level. So all good. I mean, I think sort of going into sort of part 2 of the podcast was going to be like based on the importance of conditioning work, which kind of rolls on, I guess, from what I was just saying about you know, giving you the tools necessary to, you know, to improve the quality of your life, really. And that's, you know, a big part of the importance of conditioning. So for people who aren't familiar with conditioning, work. What we're talking about here is developing energy systems, with the heart rate essentially, building aerobic fitness, building speed, power, all these kind of things. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about conditioning, and it's conditioning towards specificity of what you need to be fit for, essentially. So your conditioning work as an elite football player might be different to what we need to do for someone who's working 9 till 5 and just wants to hike on a weekend and be able to be fit enough to run around and look after the kids, for example. So within that, just to kind of touch upon the importance of it, really, I think, if we start off with the amateur, like everyday person of, like I said, just wanting to be a bit fitter, maybe wanting to lose weight. Won't go into too much about weight loss today, but if we just start off talking about how important that is, really.
A person like this, like if we're talking like not like athlete or someone who wants to take it a bit further, it should be the first thing, just like longevity, like long-term benefits of like, where do I see myself in 20 years? Like, we've all came across like older people, like your grandparents, or, just, the people who like when they take stairs or not even are able to take steps, getting out of bed, like, I myself, I don't want to be there. Like,
no.
Like when I'm 50, 60, I still want to be okay because I know it's doable.
Yeah.
You obviously take into account the age, you're not going to be like in your 20s.
Yeah.
But why not? And this should be the number one goal. Like,
you want to be as fit as you possibly can. Do you know what I mean? There is obviously an aging process, but like you can slow that down massively.
And like obviously like prevent the cardiovascular diseases, etc., which it is what it is.
Like, for sure. Yeah, it's absolutely. It's just absolute quality of life, like you say. It's as simple as like just not being absolutely blowing by like walking up the stairs or running around after your kid. And it's like money's important, work's important, but like your health is like everything, isn't it? If you only get one body, and that's that's it. So it's prevention rather than cure. Don't wait until you're in trouble or you're in hospital or whatever to start thinking, right, I need to be a little bit fitter. It should be part of your everyday life. Now, in regards to that, in terms of like levels and what we should be doing, I guess I think we can talk probably a little bit about levels of fitness, right through from like low aerobic, from steps to steady state aerobic to high intensity. So do you want to sort of run through that?
I think we could probably start with like what people I think maybe don't know what to do, because obviously they might just watch like fitness videos or YouTube videos and trying to kind of replicate what they see. And I think first thing what kind of comes up is like all these like fat burner and these kind of like commercial advertisements. So that's probably what they immediately go for, or something what has many likes on YouTube. So you're trying to do the workout, and obviously you'll probably find out that you're not capable of doing it. And then you think, I'm super unfit, and you don't really know how to build up that way. So obviously we know that this all starts with slow and gradual build up. And as you said, like things like walking and keeping up your steps is probably number one if you'd like to start.
Absolutely.
Because that makes a lot of difference. And I myself, like, I made me realize in lockdown how much of a difference it makes when you actually walk a bit more.
Big time.
And I think like this is kind of very linked to people who get sedentary jobs and drive everywhere. It literally terrifies me when people tell me how many steps they do. And I'm fully aware it's because they don't walk through the day that much, and they drive to work. And that can make a big difference already if you start like walking more in your free time, because obviously like you challenging the heart a little bit. if it's maybe a more fast walk. But yeah, basically starting off like a steady state, like just to kind of say it as simple as possible, is that you want your heart to be as efficient as possible. So having a lower heart rate, so it beats slower, but it works efficiently. So if you're not fit, or if you haven't trained much before, or you're not like familiar with training, doing a high intensity workout training is not going to be the best thing, because you're probably going to get sick to begin with, because going from your resting heart rate to near max or sub max is going to just make you sick, because your body is not used to it. The blood lactate, the feeling, like it's just a shock, and a big shock. So that just doesn't make any sense. That's why you need to build up. And we are having, like, in Metcons, we're running these blogs when we kind of focus on different energy systems. And I think we kind of teaching our guys how to differentiate the effort they work through. So, you know, when we work through interval work, we always explain, we give the brief of how hard they should work. And I think it's pretty straightforward, even for people who have no clue about it. But you need to work within your level of ability. So I would probably suggest joining MSC, but know someone who will give you a good guidance, so you have a good understanding of where you stand and how hard you should work. Because going for a run and beasting yourself up makes no sense.
I think you've explained that brilliantly. I think it's a good way to do it, of like starting someone from like sedentary and talking about steps through to aerobic, through to high intensity, almost in that order is really, really good shout. I think, like, with going right down, back to the start with steps, like you say, if you're talking about someone who's sedentary and, like, they maybe want to lose a bit of weight, or even, let's say, we won't go into too much about weight loss stuff today, but like just get a bit fitter, just, we've got to play the long game. So if you've been a bit of a shit human for 30 years, then, like, all of a sudden to go into high intensity stuff, like, is not, a long-term, it's not a long-term solution. You can't expect to be, like, if you've been shit for 30 years, you can't be amazing within a week. So get that in your head first, that, like, fitness and health is a long-term game. Now, that doesn't mean you can't look great in 3 months or 6 months, like, not at all, but you need to be thinking about getting it as part of your lifestyle, rather than just like quick fix, then we're off, quick fix, then we're off, And I think, like, going right down to that level of just a basic step count is absolutely huge. Like, even like guys like ourselves who, like, is, obviously, training's a big part of our life and being healthy, we still, like, keep an eye on our step count, and, like, we want to hit certain targets. And I'll admit myself, like, in the first lockdown, I went from, like, I don't know, like, easily hitting 20,000 steps a day just being in the gym to, like, 2,000-3,000 on occasions, like, and I was like, oh shit. And, like, you're noticing you're putting a pound or two on, you're feeling a bit sluggish, you're feeling a bit unhealthy, and it's like, well, that's why. You think getting your steps in, like, I'll be honest, it's something I never used to think about, like, as a coach, only until, like, even the last couple of years, because maybe it's because I've always been active, but, like, I underestimated the importance and the reward from, like, you can get from just upping your step count from, like, and like you say, that might be step one for someone improving their fitness alongside some good strength training, is like, right, let's get your step count up from an average of 3,000 a day to 6,000 a day, and then up to 10,000 a day. And it's like, when we're trying to get stronger and fitter, we need to, ideally for long-term development, we need the minimal dose possible to create a stress and stimulus, and therefore create an adaptation. So, like, let's say if we're getting someone off the street and we want to improve their strength, they don't need to be coming in and deadlifting 100 kilos on session one. They can deadlift 40 kilos, and that's a stress and a stimulus because it's new. And then obviously, if we're still deadlifting 40 kilos 6 months later, that's not a stress and stimulus, and therefore we don't get an adaptation improvement. But if you take someone from that low level activity of 3,000 steps a day and say, right, let's put you up to 4, let's put you up to 5, let's put you up to 6, let's get you up to 10. Right, we're hitting 10,000 steps a day consistently. Now, that's an easy way to burn calories throughout the throughout the the week, the month, the year, as the accumulation is huge. So like in the micro, if you're thinking like, is it going to make a difference if I do 10,000 steps a day rather than 3,000 steps? And it's like, it'll make a little bit of a difference. Like you'll burn an extra 100 calories, 200 calories, but those amount of calories and those amount of steps over a week, over a month, over a year is huge. And it's a cheap, easy way of like maintaining or losing weight and also building up a base level of cardiovascular fitness. It's like, and what I mean by cheap is, it's like it's costing you nothing, not only financially but in terms of effort, really. Like just by adding those, like we can, most of us can can manage eventually with some work potentially 10,000 steps a day, like, and that's a cheap, easy way to keep yourself aerobically fit, strong to an extent as well, by walking hills potentially, except even walking straight. We're decelerating as we're moving, we're accelerating, we're using joint angles, we're using muscles, albeit at a low level, but it's still something to keep us moving. And we know as we get older, and when I say getting older, I'm talking about when we get to 25, 30, 35, 40, plus, those steps, that mileage is going to add up massively. And that's stage one. And then you can obviously move into moderate aerobic work, like you said.
Because I'm just going to adapt to this, because you might have someone who's got a job and is quite a lot on feed, like, people in hospitality, which then fair play, you've got your step count probably done on one shift. But then if you just look at like an overview of a person who works in an office, they wake up, they drive to work, spend 8 to 10 hours in an office, longer shifts sometimes, and then come back home and probably obviously drive and don't even have a little walk. They probably do 1,000 steps.
Oh yeah,
tops.
Yeah.
And I think that's scary. Like,
but you're putting yourself in such a hole there. So like doing 2 HIIT sessions a week is not going to do anything.
Absolutely nothing.
If your average day to day is so low.
So and probably like moving forward from the stage one, doing more like intense stuff or moderate. Like as you said, like with the deadlift, that was a great example. I think like for people to understand simply, like you stress your body because exercise is stress, right? So you stress your body adapts, and then you need to stress it more to progress. Same with the conditioning. So if you're going to start hitting your 10,000 step, if we say 10,000 as like minimum, it's also not going to then be any more stimulus to your body. Like it's just going to be a normal thing. So you're going to be again where you were at. So then if you then want to work at, let's say, moderate state, it's good to kind of play with the efforts and how much time you're going to give to this. So again, like what people maybe think that is moderate, probably, we know what moderate is, but when you tell someone that work at steady state, I think they don't actually know what that means.
Yeah.
So maybe like an advice or guidance, like how to pick a moderate state is probably some like the generic guidance of like you probably are on the edge of holding a conversation.
No, that's a good example. Like without, like people don't necessarily want the science, they don't want their heart rate measured, etc., and that's a good guide. Even at elite level sport, that method's been used a lot where it's not functional to, or logistically possible to, get 40 guys heart rated up. It's like just steady jog, hold a conversation. So,
and obviously you probably know that it's something challenging, so it takes your breath out. You feel like your heart's beating faster, but you're still not putting yourself into that zone where you're getting dizzy, because this is what happens to beginners. They do get dizzy a lot because of that rapid increase, the threshold. And that's why I think it's really good if you go gradually, because it puts people off. If you do one session where you really push hard, it makes you feel sick and you don't want to feel like that again. But this is an issue because you don't have to feel that way if you do it smart. So we also put ourselves in those situations when we train within that limit, that like high intensity, but we know where to kind of push and where not to, or how hard we want to work, which is completely different with someone who doesn't really know. So I think you sometimes need to get to that point to try it, and you know that was your limit.
Sure.
But then if you're keen, you know you're not going to push yourself that much. But as you work, if it's structured work, you know you are getting better and better. You know, if you're using machines, which I think is a great tool, and you're looking at your output, or you know how many calories you accumulated, how far you know the distance you rode, or you know on a ski erg or on a bike, these little things like can show you how you're progressing. So if we do, you know, 1 kilo for time, and you know that you know you did it for this time, and then next time you know you did it better and you actually felt okay,
yeah,
you know you're improving, and then you can start pushing a bit harder and harder, and mixing up the sessions. So steady state, high intensity, interval work, and this all teaches you how to use the effort.
Yeah.
I think like interval work is a big topic, like when people get it wrong, when they're trying to do as little rest as possible because they think they work harder, which then they essentially just work aerobically. Because if you then do a proper session where you would work 10 seconds on and having 50 off,
yeah,
and you blast it out, and you know you've done high intensity session if you were able to manage those rounds, let's say as an example. But if you're doing a 30-minute YouTube workout with someone and you're doing, I don't know what the ratios could be,
yeah,
20 on.
Yeah, and it's essentially just steady state aerobic.
It's just steady state because you are
and you
not
haven't got
able
the strength and power to produce that amount of force to
for
work
30
at
minutes.
those high
Absolutely.
intensities. But
So
I think with aerobic work, you know, if we think right, so we talked about steady state aerobic, then you know we've almost got like maximal aerobic work, because like aerobic work isn't just, you know, for the listeners, isn't just necessarily steady state. Like when we're talking about aerobic, like, you know, this morning in our class this morning, we've done hard aerobic work, like maximal aerobic work, and then like you say, like, you know, anaerobic stuff and interval and like, you know, alactate, you know, and things like that, and lactate. Whilst we're kind of up at the moderate aerobic work, I'd like to just diverse into sport a little bit actually whilst we're there. So like just very quickly, so with like that moderate aerobic work, so like as you just said, Sonia, like massive benefits for, you know, the everyday person, and you know the next step up from just a basic step count or something like that. We can, you know, work the heart and lungs harder, you know, we can, you know, build up, you know, very good aerobic endurance. We can reduce, you know, heart rate beats per minute, the quality, you know, the quality in which, you know, the heart's pumping blood around the body, etc., etc. But from a sporting point of view as well, like it's going to help you massively. So like strength is like your muscular kind of engine, if you like, but aerobic ability like is absolute key for your fitness, for lack of a better word. So if we're talking about field-based performance, for example, if we're talking about field sports, 99% of field sports are aerobic/alactate based. So you'll be like, if you take football, rugby, hockey as kind of examples, they're sports that are based around 80 or 90 minutes long, and the movements within those sports change between high intensity sprints, okay, and then steady state aerobic. So if you think of a footballer, for example, okay, so if you picture a footballer now in your head, like they're not running shuttles up and down for 90 minutes, like it's not, you know, always maximal aerobic. There's quite, although it does happen, there's quite infrequent examples of like lactate even. Yeah. So like, you know, for a footballer, there might be some periods of lactate if you're a fullback or a wing back, and it's like you're up, down, up all in one short block. That's quite rare, but it can happen. So it's worth training. You know, 2 to 5% of your conditioning training might involve lactate, but most of it is like, picture that footballer, it's walk, jog, sprint, jog, walk, it's actually very, very aerobic. So by working, that what we'd call sort of blue zone, green zone aerobic base, which is like steady state aerobic, is actually really, really important.
Basically
along with the speed
that you can maintain and hold through that 90-minute
you can maintain your performance, because without an aerobic base, and I speak from experience because for a little while in my career I lost my aerobic base quite a bit, and like there's no worse feeling than like you're absolutely blowing after doing like a high intensity burst, and then your ability to replenish and recover and go again is very, very limited, and that's quite an uncomfortable place to be for a field athlete. So it's really important to have a good aerobic base for field sports. Also for power sports, like there is there is some importance as well, like for for powerlifting or Olympic lifting, like it's important. So okay, it might not, like me as a rugby player and you as a weightlifter, let's say, like I know you might not be a good example because obviously you're very fit aerobically for a weightlifter, but like like it would be more important for me to spend a bigger chunk of my conditioning in that aerobic zone, and obviously being a rugby player, like be a lot of power and speed as well, but I would need a good aerobic base. A weightlifter or powerlifter would not need as good an aerobic base,
definitely,
but it's like not to be neglected. Two basic reasons. One is with a better aerobic base, you're going to be able to handle a better volume of training and perform better in your sessions. And the second one, and recover better. And the second one is in competition mode, like especially in weightlifting, where you have to follow yourself on occasions, and you might have 2 minutes between lifts, heavy lifts. The better the aerobic base, then the better chance you have.
Definitely much better coping with training. Like if you don't have good aerobic fitness or base, the session is really hard. It must be way harder, must take you longer. Whereas like for me, I know I can rest a little less. Like it's just different. Like you just recover better. And not even just within your sets, but like in terms of sessions day by day. Like that's, let's say, why I feel like I can sometimes train every day, or I don't need that much of a recovery. Obviously, like depends on what you kind of follow it for. But 100%, like even in power sports, so it's not just for someone who actually does like field sport or something what takes obviously longer. Like still having a good fitness base is as beneficial for us as for anybody else.
100%.
Like I think the recovery is a big one.
I think with the aerobic, like you say, there's like the steady state side of it, and then there is like maximal aerobic speed training as well, and things like that. That might be a good podcast for us to do another time. Actually, would be like tempo running versus mass running and things like that. Now with your slower kind of tempo stuff, like you're working more sort of low to moderate aerobic, which isn't as hard, but again like has a massive carryover to actual field performance and like Olympic lifting performance, for example, powerlifting as well. And the advantage of that is that you recover really well before your next session. You've also got maximal like aerobic speed training, like mass training, popularized a lot by Dan Baker over in Australia. Like great method of training, great results, but like quite taxing between sessions. So that would also be something to think about for athletes.
Those are really hard. I think there was a block of Metcon we did.
I did a mass one a while back, and it's brutal.
It's brutal.
So there are things to think about anyway. I mean, like I said, I'll probably leave that for a separate podcast, like mass versus tempo stuff. Would be quite a good one to do. So there we go. We've got the next podcast sorted. But then like I think just round up like high intensity stuff and anaerobic and stuff is like I think a lot of people, like especially beginners, like that they think they're doing a HIIT workout online, like a Joe Wicks HIIT workout. Like Joe Wicks has done a lot of good for the industry, but like a Joe Wicks HIIT workout is not high intensity training. It is not, because you're not moving enough speed or power to to be high intensity. It's just not high intensity.
Yes.
And you're working for like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, which is not high intensity. Just wanted to put that out there. But it's making millions, so fair play. So yeah, build out aerobic base, throw in like your alactate speed work, which we haven't really gone into too much today, but I think it's fairly obvious.
Again, like the note is probably that like it's also built gradually like everything else. Like if you're unfit, if you haven't trained before, or if you had a long break, you know, training as a kid, now you're 40 and you're trying to be back when you were in your, 16, 18. It's gradual, like you're gonna build up the fitness that, like, as simple as it is, again, no shortcut to it. Building a steady state aerobic fitness will help you with your high
That's
intensity
your foundation, isn't it?
That's your foundation, exactly.
Yeah,
Steady.
cool, fantastic. Yeah, before we finish, I want to say a little shout out to our most loyal listener, Mr. Alan Bush. Congratulations on the takeover at Newcastle United. Long time coming, great club, and you boys are coined now. They're going to be fucking taking over Europe. So yeah, congrats, Bushy. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We will catch up with you next time. Ciao.